which hasn't exactly been going that well here on my channel in terms of movies and their ratings. So I decided it was about time that I returned to my comfort zone, which either meant we were going to be watching a horror comedy of some sort, an insane Japanese horror comedy of some sort, or a death game, because let's be honest, if you want any of those three things, I'm the lady to come to. So in fact, we are watching a horror comedy with vampires. But if you don't know anything about Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007, let me quickly fill you in. Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007 is a vampire horror comedy. It's just another day at Netherbeast Incorporated. Cubicles, coffee, and blood in the drinking fountain. They are, after all, vampires. But not all is well when an employee is found dead with a stake through his heart. This is going to be one hell of a day at the office. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back! I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, but as always, when it comes to watching movies that I've never seen before, I'm now going to go and watch Netherbeast Incorporated off camera, so that way if you too decide that you want to watch the Office vampire movie, nothing will be spoilt for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie that you've just watched somebody else watch from start to finish, and I keep it spoiler free here on my channel, because nobody, and I mean nobody, likes spoilers.
Oh, cool! Cubicles!
I have never worked a 9-to-5 office job. I don't want to work a 9-to-5 office job. I've worked retail and that is bad enough, but imagine being a vampire and this being the job that you are forever stuck with. The plot revolves around a telemarketing company, but not as all as it appears under the surface, because this company was actually founded by Alexander Graham Bell, aka the man that invented the telephone, hence the telemarketing company front, and President Garfield, because why not? And there were rumours that this guy was a vampire, which I think is hilarious. Both of these two characters actually feature in this movie, and for my Americans out there, the details surrounding the fact that Alexander Graham Bell actually tried to save President Garfield after his assassination, all of that part of this movie is actually historically correct, which is wild to think that we could take that from history and turn it into, here's a massive vampire conglomerate that just so happens to be in telephone sales. It's quirky, it is absolutely quirky, and because of that, it is not going to be for everybody. But I'm going to try and describe this in a way that is spoiler-free, so you can decide for yourself if this is the kind of quirky that you can get behind, or whether this is just like too far out there quirky, because trust when I say there is such a thing as too much quirk. I'm ready, I'm ready. The boss, who is a vampire, happens to have the vampire version of dementia, which means he has forgotten who he is, that he is in fact a vampire, and that all of his employees are also vampires, which leads to, within the opening 30 seconds, our boy Otto, who is played by Steve Burns, who, if you don't know who he is, it's Steve from Blue's Clues. Like, we now know where he went after leaving Blue's Clues. He walks into the boss's office and finds that one of his colleagues has been staked by the boss, who is like, oh, I found out he was a vampire, and then everything goes horribly wrong. The boss hires a human as this guy's replacement. The vampires not only work in this office block, they also live in the top 5 floor, like they never leave the building. And all of a sudden there is this human woman here, and they're like, damn, we've now got to not be suspicious because she's gonna suspect that we're all vampires, and things are gonna get interesting.
Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious.
In a strange way though, this movie kind of reminds me of the documentary Super Size Me by Morgan Spurlock, because you actually get given the history of the company and how the company has changed and altered through the years, and you find out about the employees and everything to do with that. Like, there's a lot of like pop-up infomercial style things in the first half of this that give you all of this backstory and information, and you see how the vampires have had to go from like living in the 50s to the 70s to now, and the things that they watch on TV has very much shaped their personalities. Like, if you have ever seen anything that is set in an office, like The Office or Parks and Rec or insert whatever, you have met every single one of these characters in this office setting.
I knew that Super Size Me guy was full of it.
There is, though, one issue with this movie, and that is that the first 45 minutes are way stronger than the second 45 minutes, which is such a shame, because if the movie had been entirely like the first 45 minutes of this, it would have been so much fun. It would have been campy as hell. If you've seen this movie, everything up to when the vampires decide that they might have to start doing happy hour and leaving the building so that the new human employee doesn't get suspicious. Yes, that's right. The vampires decide to go to the cinema and they decide to do like drinking games and like they're trying not to be sus to the humans, but they're like, we don't normally do this thing and it's weird and we'd rather just clock out and go back home. Like, I love that part. That half, great. Second half, very much turns into like a whodunit, because this is when there's a part in the plot, and it's kind of in other synopsises that I've read, so I'm going to include it here. There is a part in the plot where they're like, maybe there's something a little bit more sinister going on here because more and more vampires keep turning up dead at work, and they're like, is this the boss with his vampire version of dementia doing all this and not realising what he's doing it? Or is there something far more sinister at play? And the comedy then disappears from the second half, which is a little bit straight. Like, I saw somebody online describe this movie as like a indie comedy workshop, and that is the perfect way to describe this movie, because it very much feels like they hit the ground running. There was story, there was everything there, and then the further into it they went, they weren't quite sure what direction to go in, and the audience kind of, you know, you sort of fizzle out as the movie goes on. I'm basically saying I would like the movie to be the first 45 minutes, but extended all the way to the hour and 29 minute mark, which is this movie. I love the pop-ups in this. I love the voiceover stuff in this. That's why I was saying it reminds me of the documentary Super Size Me. All of this stuff adds world building and it develops everything. And that just disappears in the second half, which makes me sad.
No, don't hug me.
Its humour is very of its time. And if you like TV shows like The Office, the American version of The Office, not the UK version of The Office, or Parks and Rec, you will understand this humour. It is it's very office-based in its humour. You need to know like who everybody is, who works in what cubicle, what kind of weird quirks and personalities they've got. That's all in the first half. Second half, goodbye. There are certainly things within this movie that would get you cancelled by online Karens who've decided to take offence to this, rather than just acknowledging, yeah, maybe we don't go back to doing some of these questionable things. Hence why I'm saying it is very of its time. Think things like, if you've ever seen Epic Movie or Not Another Teen Movie, like they were funny at the time and they were things that we laughed at, and now you might still laugh at them, but there's that little cringe bit that comes in with it and you're like, ah, yes, this hasn't aged very well. Maybe we don't use that slur anymore, because the vampire dementia in this has got a name. And I am not going to repeat that name because that name happens to involve the R slur. And there's even an entire plot point in this where they're like, yeah, we know that the name's not that PG, but what can you do about it? Like, maybe just don't call it that in the first place. The practical effects are fine, but I'll say that they are used in unison often with the comedy aspect. And in a horror comedy, I'm prepared to let you get away with more than I would if you were going for like a horror thriller or a horror drama, where I'm going to need you to bring the realism. In a horror comedy, you can go as wild and off the wall as you like, and I'm going to be like, it's a horror comedy, it's fine. But also, this movie doesn't have a very big budget. I think it's estimated at $725,000, which is tiny for a film budget. But they actually use this budget very well, in my opinion. Like, they reuse the scenery in this to actual oblivion. Like, you get so used to seeing the office cubicles, the canteen, the boss's office, the lobby, the apartments that they live in. But it makes absolute sense within this world, because these are vampires that never leave this office building. Like, I am now as familiar with these cubicles as the actual people that work in this office. In the end, I'm going to give Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007 a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It is quirky. It is quirky as all hell, and I love that. But I do wish that this movie had been the first half of the movie pushed all the way through to the end. You can't tell me that a movie about vampires being killed off around the clock while the new girl, who isn't a vampire, is getting suspicious, wouldn't have been a better way to go about this movie. Like, the second half certainly feels like it didn't know where it wanted to go, and it absolutely backseated its comedy. Like, you can be a murder mystery and you can be a comedy. The perfect example is the movie Clue, because while it is a murder mystery, its comedy is all the way integrated within its plot, and it doesn't bench that for its plot. And Clue at least knew where it was going the entire time. But my opinion isn't the only one that matters, which begs the question, should you personally watch Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007? If you like your horror movies flavoured with office settings, quirky vampires, 9-to-5 lives, American history, taxidermy, anything that is listed here, you will probably like Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching Netherbeast Incorporated from 2007. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are on it down in the comments section down below. And if you are interested in watching this one, click the description bar because there will be a link in there to justwatch.com so you can find out where it is streaming in your country. If you would like to know where else you can find me, I am also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, where I post every single horror movie that I watch, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube. But speaking of YouTube, I'll be back on Friday with another solo movie review. But I have no idea what I'm watching, which is where the Horde comes in again, because I got asked about a month ago if I would run more polls so that you could pick what I am watching. So as of right now, for the next 24 hours, over on my community page, there is a poll with 4 options in it that were each recommended by a member of the Horde over the past year in my comments section. So what I'm watching on Friday is completely in your hands. So until next time, bye.